Hey there, I'm your host Lisowi, and in this tutorial you will learn how to create a focus timer. This was a requested video by Sahenza, and in here we have our session minutes, break minutes, and number of sessions. So let's say we want our task to be 20 minutes, our break to be 5, and we have 2 sessions. When we hit start, we'll get a pop-up on the screen. We can close this window, run around, speed things up, come back in here again. We can pause this, restart it, change things around if we don't like to, start it again, and that's pretty much it. And every time we hit break and our task time again, we'll get a notification. So that said, let's begin. Also, I want to mention that with this system, it'll be very easy to create a different timer and just add it to the system. So to start things off, I want to be able to press a key and have the clock pop up on the screen. So for that, we'll go into our third person, input, actions, and let's go and create a new input action. So IA_clock. We'll save it, go back a folder to the IMC_default. Create a new mapping, select our clock, and add a key to it. I'll have it on the Q key. It's comfortable for me. Once you're happy, save and exit. And let's go back into the content folder and create a new folder for the UI. User interface. And typically in here, you'd put all of your UI in here, so your inventory, quest systems, all that. So let's go ahead and create a specific one for the clock UI, and then we can put all of our clock related stuff in here. Let's right click, create a new widget blueprint, and we'll call it WP_clock. Save it. And once we open this, let's go ahead and add a canvas panel to this. And then we want something solid as a background. So we'll do border, drag it onto our canvas panel. You can select your border and go to anchors. And if you hold Control and Shift and select any of these, it'll snap. So I want it in the center. For the padding, do I have a padding? No, I don't. But for the size, I'll do 500 and 800 on the Y. And brush color, I'll make it slightly grayish. Looks good to me. And I also want to add a vertical box. So all of our content will be stored vertically. And we can remove padding or add padding. I'll leave it at 0. And in here, I want the text like so. And I want to add another border. And this will be used as a spacer, kind of. So in here for the padding, let's do 20. Oh, let's do 1. And for the padding at the top, let's do 20, 0. Get something like that. Then select your text, center that, padding, let's say 10, and we'll call it the timer. It looks kind of nice. And then when we create our focus timer, we can just drop it down below. So this looks good to me. So let's compile and save. Next up in the event graph, let's go ahead and create 2 custom events. One for showing the mouse, so show mouse, and another one for hiding it, so hide mouse. Now in here then, we can go ahead and do get player controller, do a set show mouse cursor to show the mouse on the screen. And at the very end, we'll do a set input game mode. Now, if you do game only, your inputs won't be valid. So you want game on UI. And we can bring this down. We can copy this again. Now, when we hide our mouse, we just want to check if our player controller is valid. So is valid. Plug it in before, like so. Then do a check. Make sure to turn this off. Double click that. So we'll just bring it down and drag it from here to set input game only. And that brings us back to how we were. There we go. Next, let's also go ahead and comment this so we know what this is. And this will be our show / hide mouse. Let's also give it some color. So bluish like that. And I'm happy with this. Let's save it. Okay. Next, let's go ahead and create a show and hide clock. So we'll do custom events for show clock, and another one custom event for hiding the clock. So this is very straightforward. All we got to do is grab the border, which we don't have in here. So let's go to designer, click on the border, make sure it's variable. Let's also just give it a name, border underscore clock. So we know what we're doing. Grab it in and do set visibility. So when we show the clock, we want this to be visible. And when we hide it, we want this to be collapsed. So the difference, by the way, between collapsed and hidden is that hidden still takes up space in the UI, collapsed doesn't. So let's also comment this here. And at the very end, we just want to add the mouse. So we have show mouse when we display the clock and hide mouse, oops, when we hide it. Let's comment this show/hide clock. And there we go. Next, let's go ahead and create a function to see if our clock is on the screen or not. So we'll do is clock visible. And all we got to do is grab our clock border, do get visibility, do an equals enum. Visible is already in here, so we just want to return this as the boolean that it is. So once that's done, we can close this down, compile and save. We are not done in here yet, but for the time being we are. So let's close this down, open up our content, and create a new folder for the clock. Now in here, you essentially want to go to blueprint class and create a new actor component, call it ppc underscore clock component. And whenever you're designing a component for a player, it's always a good idea to go in here to your third person character or your player and just add it in case you might forget later. I typically do. So we have the clock component now. So when we press Q, that should work for us. But first, let's go ahead and make that logic. So clock component. And in here, we want to create a custom event, which we want to call create clock. And this will create the widget we just spent time making. So we'll do create widget. I call this, and then we got to call WB underscore clock or whatever you called yours. I'll promote it to a variable just to have it as clock. We'll add it to the viewport. And then I want to hide the clock like so. And anything else I got to do? No, we can comment this then creates the clock widget. And let's color it. Next, we want to grab our input action that we made at the start. So input action underscore clock. And whenever this is pressed, so when started, we want to grab our clock and do visibility, I think. Is clock visible? There we go. And we'll do on started. And if the clock is visible, we'll hide it. And if not, we'll show it. So do hide clock and show clock. And let's just make sure that we create this widget at the very start. So in here on event begin play, we call the create clock. So let's also comment this to do input to show/hide the clock. And we'll just color that as well. Once you're happy, compile and save. And let's give this a quick test. So when we hit play, press Q, we should get the timer on the screen. Q again to hide it. So with all of that working, let's go ahead and create some more stuff for the clock. So in the clock UI, go into your user interface, create another widget. We'll call it WB underscore time button. And in here, we want to grab a size box. And this will be used for our time arrows, etc., etc. So we'll have our size box, we'll have our button, and we'll have our image. So for the size box, we can actually just fill screen to desired. so it's not all over the place. For the size box, we can leave it. For the button, we can go in here, make sure the normal padding and pressed padding are both set to 0. And the background color is on the alpha channel is also set to 0. Now for the image, delete the padding and voila. Oops, not voila just yet. There we go. There's no padding and this fills up the whole screen. And I'll also just call it img_icon. So once you're happy, let's also click on the size box, give it a isVariable tag and call it sbox. Once happy, compile and save that. Go to your event graph. And in here on pre-construct, we want to do a few things. Every time I add this icon, I want to size it and I want to be able to change the icon inside. So for that, we'll grab the size box here, do set or override, set height override, and set a width override as well. Now these values here at the moment are no good to us because we need to promote them to variables and make them instance editable. So that way we can edit it in real time in the designer. So promote to height is good enough. Either click instance editable here or just the I here. Promote to variable, call it width, instance editable. And at the very end, we just want to grab our icon, set the brush from texture, promote this to a variable as well, called icon, make it instance editable, and that way we can basically edit this whole widget whenever we add it anywhere. So let's just comment this. Set custom size and icon in the designer. So with this, we can actually spice things up by adding an animation to this as well. Because at the moment, if you were to hover over this, nothing will happen. So if you go to Window, Animations, click on the button, and we can actually just call it button. I don't want the 18 at the back. Call it pop up, and we can hit add button. I want transform because I want to change the scale. So at 0, 0, we'll have it at 1, and at 0.1, I'll change it to 1.1. Slight increase. Boom. Okay. Close this down. Back in the event graph, we have our animation here. Under animations, we can drag this out, click on the button and do on hovered and on, where is this? On hover, on hovered. So in here, we can do play animation. And then on this, we'll just do play animation again, but this time I will reverse it. Just call that on hovered slash on hovered. Next, we also want to grab the button and do on clicked, and we want to add an event dispatcher to this. So when we add this UI, this widget to another UI, we can have this event being called. So we'll do on clicked, all that, and there we go. Let's compile and save. So with the icon complete, let's go ahead and create another widget for our time slot. And this we can call WB_horizontal. Time window, time slot, whichever you prefer. Let's open it up. And in here, I want to start by adding a vertical box. And actually, for the size, we can do custom, something like 300 by 180, let's say. Oops, 180 should work. And in here, then I want to grab two texts, 1 and 2. The top one I want to be in the center, and this will be variable. We'll just call it txt_name, so we know if this is a session, a break, etc. And let's see. Then for this one here, I want to, again, in the center, make it variable, and we'll call it txt underscore value name. So this could be minutes, hours, again, etc. And for the size, I'll just do 18. So let's just say by default, we'll have minutes in here. I can change that later. Here, I'll just say session. Now, between those, I want to go ahead and add a horizontal box into our vertical box. Let's move that up. And I want to have the two buttons we made. So button, oops, not the regular one, the time button. And I want two of these. So select either or, either which one, and we'll call it button underscore left and button underscore right. Now in here, I already know how big I want this to be, so just play around with this. For me, 60 works, and I just add my arrow icon then. These I have gotten from Flat Icon, so I'll leave a link in the description if you want the same thing. And this I'll call button underscore right. Again, just set this to 60, and we have the arrow again. Now this arrow is going to point left, so to change the direction, scroll down to transform here and change the scale to be -1. And there we go. Now, if we select both of them, I actually want them to be in the center, and that looks good to me. What else can I do? We can go ahead and click on the horizontal box, change that in the center as well. And we can do what else? Fill that out. And between those two arrows, I want to go ahead and add a border. Just a regular border. Move it in the center. What we'll do is we'll fill it out and change the brush color to like gray. Okay. And for the padding, I'll do 0 and 10. And inside, I want to grab a text, but this time I want an editable text. So we can change the value just by clicking on it. For size, I'll do 40. I want this to be padding. We can do 30, 0. And we'll just say 0 for the moment in the center, like so. And let's also just call it txt, so editable text underscore time will work. And I believe we are done. These look a little small to me, so perhaps if I just change this to 100. Nope, that doesn't do it. Yeah, it's okay. Let's just compile and save. In the event graph then, on pre-construct, we want to go ahead and grab our text, the regular one, name, and do set text. And we want to promote this to a variable called, let's see, session name, or window slot name, sounds better. And make this instance editable. And after that, we want to, for example, get the value name and do set visibility. Now, for the break and the session, I want the minutes to be visible, but when we have the number of sessions, I want this to be hidden. So in the designer, I'll grab the visibility and I'll do a select in here based on is it visible. So we can change this, change pin type to be a Boolean, promote it to a variable and do hide value name. If it's true, we'll collapse it. So collapsed. If false, we'll just make it not hit testable. Okay, and this you want to be instance editable. Right. After that, we want to go ahead and grab the value name as well and just set that text, whatever we decide. We want this to be variable value name, instance editable. And after that, let's grab our text time, so editable text, and do set text. Now this was slightly different because editable text at the very bottom. select that, and we'll do, what do we want? We want to create a variable for the current time. So current time, change this to a integer. When you drag this out, we can plug this in here. Now, by the way, if you click on this, you can see the minimum integral digits. So this is, for example, if you had 0.5, that means there are 2. Now, I just want 5 minutes to be displayed, so I'll leave it about 1. So up to yourselves, what you want to do there. I just want 1. And once you're done, we can select all of that and do allows for custom settings in the designer. Next, we want to decide what happens when we hit the left and the right arrows. So on clicked, I want to have them here. So left is decrement and right is increment. So I'll just switch them around. So when I hit the right arrow, I want to increment my current time. So we'll get the current time. We'll do add whatever the increment amount is. So just promote that to variable, increment value. I want to then clamp this to whatever it would be. So clamp integer. So my max value, promote that to a variable. So max time. And at the very end, I just want to set this as my current time. So for the decrementation of this, we'll just do minus instead of plus. And when we come out of this, I want to grab my editable text, to set text, editable text like so. And again, the same thing happens here. When you drag this out, gives you that little window where you can change the minimal digits. So I'm happy with this. I'll just copy paste that in here. And instead of doing a plus, I can go ahead and change this to be a minus. So current time minus whatever the increment time is the value there. So once we're happy, we can comment this as well. I'll just bring it a tiny bit closer and call it the increment and decrement time logic. Increment time logic. Next, let's go ahead and create a custom event called refresh. And this will just refresh our editable text. So grab your editable text to set text. And in here on refresh, I want to have a value. So we'll add in a integer, call it value or time. And we want to drag this in here like so. And before I do, I just want to set that to be the current time. And then have this join that. And there we go. And we'll comment this updates the time. Now we can also change the time by just clicking on it. So if we go back to the designer, I can just click on this in the actual UI and change the time. So for that, what we'll do is we'll click on our editable text. We have on text changed and on text committed. So how do we do that? We also just want to clamp it so that we don't press letters, etc. into it. So for that, we'll do text to string. And we want to then do string to integer. There we go. And from that, we'll do a clamp to whatever the value is and our maximum value. So max time, we set that as the current time. And you've guessed it, we just call refresh. So we can just copy this part, plug it in, set that. And for time committed, we just want to check if this method is equal enum to your desired preference. In my case, that's enter. And if that has been met, we'll go ahead and just do the same thing. So paste that on true. And let me just clean this up a little bit. And there we go. So we can also comment this. And just before we leave, let's make sure the current, increment, and max time are all instance editable. And there we go. Compile, save, and exit. Next, I want to create the start button for the clock, but I also wanted to have options like pause, resume, restart. So for that, in here, we'll right click, go into blueprint, enumeration, we'll call it E underscore button mode or clock button mode, whichever you prefer. In here, we just want to create a few options. So in my case, I want a start. I want a pause. Let's see, resume. And I want a restart option. That's all. Save and exit. And we have that now. So let's go ahead and create a new widget. Call it WB underscore, let's see, clock button. Open that up. And before we do any designing, in the event graph, we can just create a variable called button mode. And just make sure we give it the button, what do we call it? I called it button mode. E underscore button mode. Nope. Button. There we go. E underscore button mode. And we can use it now. Perfect. So in the designer, I want to go ahead and grab a button. Simple as that. And we'll just grab a text. Put it in here and make it variable. Call it txt button name. And just say button. Doesn't matter, we'll be changing it in a little while. So compile and save and open up the event graph. Inside here, we want to create a new custom event and we want to call it update button mode. So we want to pass in our variable. So let's just drag this to a set. And then I want to change this to a string. So to string. And then to a text, like so. And if I grab my button, I can do set text to whatever that value is. There we go. And if I make this instance editable, we can change it in the designer. So on pre-construct, we can add this. So drag the button mode in here. And our button variable. And let's just comment this. And before I forget, let's also click on the button here itself and do on clicked. So whenever we press this, we know to do an action. So we want an event dispatcher for this, do on clicked. And simply call it. And there we go. Compile and save, and we can leave. So we are almost there. Let's right click and create a new widget and call it WB underscore focus timer. And let's open that up. Inside, we want to grab a vertical box and then throw in all of the stuff we made. So before we do, I just want to do a custom. Width, I'll do 500 just to kind of match what the clock is. And in here, we want to start throwing a few things. So we want to grab our time slot. There we go. Throw 1, throw 2, and throw 3. You can select all of them and just do a padding, let's say of 10, 15, whatever looks nice to you. And when we click on each individual one, we can set these parameters. So slot name, call it session. Let's see, value name, we'll do minutes. Current time, let's say we do by default 5. Increment time will increment by 5 as well. And max time, let's say we set to 60. Then for this, we want to do the same. So slot name will do break. minutes, current time 5, max time as well 60. And for this, I want to hide the minutes. So it doesn't matter if I say something in here, like minutes, won't show up. Then for the slot name, I want to do number of sessions. And we'll do current time 1, and max. Let's say we can have 60 sessions as well. Doesn't matter. Okay. That's all on good now. Now we need 2 buttons to restart the timer. So let's grab our buttons, lock button, drag it in. And for them as well, I'll just select both and do padding 10, like so. Now start, we will leave at start. And this one I'll change to restart. And by default, this will be hidden, only visible when the timer starts. And again, hidden when the timer ends. Let's also name them. So button underscore start and button underscore restart. And we could also name these as well. That wouldn't be bad. Widget session. Then widget break. And widget number of sessions. So everything is nicely labeled. I think we can proceed to the event graph. Compile, save, and let's go. So just before we do any logic in here, I just want to show you how this looks so far. So if we hit play, we have this. It's still empty. So we need to go ahead and add this to our clock. So let's open this up, grab the vertical box so we know where we're at, and just search for a focus timer, drag it in here, and there we go. From the top, I just want to do maybe a padding of 20, like so. And that's looking nice. So let's compile and save, play, and here we are. So if I hit the arrows, they work, but obviously we don't have any time right now. That's looking nice. And 0 is our minimum. So back inside the focus timer, let's go ahead and start things off by creating a custom event called begin focus timer. And from here, I want to do a set timer by event. This event, drag out from the red square to custom event. Let's call it decrement focus timer. We want this to be looping, and we want this to happen every single second. Now in here, we want to create another custom event. So let's just make a function, and let's call it the focus timer countdown. And for the moment, we can leave it blank. I just want it to exist here. And that's fine. Let's also comment this code to be focus timer counting event. Full stop. There we go. Next, we want to create some handy functions, which we'll need. And this is going to be called return set time. In here, I want to grab the session, the number of sessions, and the break. And I want to get the time, current time, for all of them. And just return them. So we'll do a return node. And we'll just return that. Let's call them session break and number of sessions. Next, let's go ahead and create another function called is focus timer set. So if this is not set, the clock can't be started. So let's get our return set time. We can actually make this a pure function. And in here, I just want to make sure none of these are equal to 0. So not equal to 0. Copy paste that for all three. And the condition is and Boolean. So they all have to be not 0. And we'll just return that. Like so. And we can compile, save, close this one down, close this one down, and close that one down. Okay. So next then we'll create another function, and this will be called the update time values. And in here, I want to grab the return set time, and I just want to promote them to a variable. So session, promote to a variable, we'll call it session minutes. Then I want another one, but for the seconds, so promote to variable, session seconds. And we'll do the same for the break. So promote to variable, break minutes. You can disconnect that from the session seconds, by the way. And promote this again to a variable called break seconds. We just want the variable to exist. Well, we're never actually setting the seconds, so that's the reason we don't need them. And then the number of sessions. So let's just tidy this up a little bit. And now we're done. So let's close that. So from here, what we can do is let's go ahead and grab our button start and the button restart. So we have start and restart. So from start, I want to grab the button start and do get button mode. And I want to switch from it. So if it's start, we'll do start. If it's pause, we'll do something else, and etc. So if the button is equal to start, I want to first check is the focus timer set. Because remember, if it's not set, we don't want to begin it. And if true, we can continue. So we'll begin this event here. So let's call custom event, or we don't need custom event, begin focus timer. And from here, I want to then, let's see, grab that button and change the mode. So update button mode from start to pause because we're running. And I want to get the restart button and do set visibility to be visible. And again, just in the designer by default, I want this to be collapsed. So we can scroll down to see visibility and make it collapsed. We can also, for good measure, just set it here on construct if you want, like so. And let's see. Okay, so we're here. Then at the very end, I want to set the so after set visibility of the restart button, we want to go ahead and do update time values. And at the very end, I want to call an event dispatcher to notify us when this timer started. So we'll do event dispatchers on focus timer started. And I want to do two more. I want on focus timer ended. And one more on focus timer updated. So in here, we'll call started. Call that. Then in here, we want to pause it. So from the begin focus timer, we want to promote to variable, and we'll just call it our focus timer, like so. So because we have that value now, we can drag it and do pause. Let's see, pause timer by handle, unpause. We want to update our button, so change this now to resume. And when we do resume, we want to unpause timer by handle, and then change this back to, let's see, pause. And that's the logic for the start button. We can comment all of that. So once that's commented, let's go to our restart button. And in here, we want to grab the focus timer. Whenever we restart, I want to clear and invalidate timer by handle. So we fully reset it. I want to update the values. So we'll drag this in here. And I want to get the button start. So here, do, let's see, update button mode to start. I want to get the visibility of the restart button. Hide it. So we have collapsed. And we want to call timer ended. Let's just comment this. And from here, we can also create another event called, let's see, end focus timer. So in here, we'll pretty much do the same thing, like so. But at the very end, I want to call a event for notification. So we'll do this. We don't want to update any values. We change the buttons and call the event dispatcher. Perfect. At the very end, we can come back here, add a comment for a add notify. So when we finish the timer, we'll have finished printed or a widget. Okay, compile and save. So now if we were to test this, it would work, but only for the buttons. So I'm playing, we have start, goes into pause, goes into resume, and restart. The buttons work, but we don't have any time on the screen and nothing's really happening. So let's fix that. So back in here, we want to go ahead and create a new custom event called update screen time. Now in here, we want to go ahead and change a text that we currently don't have. So when you do set text, make sure that context sensitive is off. So if you scroll down, it'll be the second one from the bottom. And I just want to turn this back on. Now in here, for this text, this will be set from a different UI. So I'll just drag it in here. It's just nice to keep all the logic in this widget. Now for the text here, we can do a format text and we can do a few things. So I want this to be curly brackets, A, close curly brackets, double colon, open curly brackets to B. So at the top, we'll have the minutes of the session and then the session seconds. Here, I want to have the break minutes and then I want the break seconds. And at the very bottom, I want to have the, let's see, the sessions. So we'll call it E and we'll say session. And depending if it's plural or not, I just want to add the S maybe, perhaps, left, sessions left. In here, let's do session. And we can also do break. Now we need to fill all of these values and that needs to come from here. So click on this event, add your values, make sure they're integer. And we need a total of 5. So let's see, session minutes, session seconds, break minutes, break seconds, and number of sessions. And again, we just want to do to text, integer, like so. And this time I want this to be a value of 2 because I want, if it's 5 seconds left, I want 0.5, not just 5. So we'll just copy that a few times. But for that very last one, number of sessions, we'll just do 1. So this will be for sessions. This goes to E, D, C, B, and just make sure, plug that in, select all that, press Q, aligns it nicely for you. And for S, how I want to do this is I want to check if the number of sessions is equal to 1. If that's the case, I'll do a select in here, but I want this to be text. So let me just cheat a little bit and do a select text. There we go. And this goes to A. And if that's the case, I want this to say S. So if it's equal to 1, it's just going to say session left. And if it's greater than 1, it's going to say sessions left. So let's comment this. And perfect. So let's go ahead and create or modify our clock a little bit. So open up your clock. In here on the top left, for example, I want to add a text. So we'll do text, drag it to your canvas panel. I want it to be 50 off from the top and side. We'll call it, make it variable first of all. Call it txt underscore focus timer screen. Size the content. And we don't need to change or worry about how it looks right now. We'll change that in a second. So let's just compile, save, go to the event graph. And in here, we have the reference to our timer because it's already in the designer. So therefore, we have that function we made. Let's just call that, get it, and create a new event called bind to timer. Now call this event on begin play. So on construct, we want to bind to timer. This happens. And in here, I want to bind to all of my events. So I'll bind to, let's see, timer started, bind to timer ended, and bind to updated. Like so. Stretch this out, we'll need all that space. And actually, instead of having it run like that, we can delete that. Double click here and double click here. Just makes it look a little neater. Okay. So in here, I want to do a custom event called on timer, on focus timer updated or started. Paste that. On focus timer ended. And from here, instead of putting all these variables, because whenever we call the event dispatcher, this event needs to have the same outputs. So in our case, at the moment, if we go back, we'll get an error if we try to compile. But if we go back, we can see that our on-focus timer updated doesn't have any values going out. We need the values in order to update that text. So on focus timer, I'll just do a sequence. We'll have that time logic in a second. But at the end, I want to return on focus timer updated. And when I do, I want to return the time. So click on that and do, where is that thing? Click on the widget. There we go, new parameter. I want to create 5 because I have 5 times. So we want the session minutes, session seconds, and you get the idea. Break minutes, break seconds, and then we have number of sessions. So right click, do refresh, and then just plug in your values. So now once you're done, compile and save. Go back into the clock and do create or custom event. It'll add all of these parameters for us now. So we'll do on timer updated. Now in here then, if we compile, everything should be fine. So let's see. So on started, we want to go ahead and grab the text focus timer and do set visibility. Visibility be visible, but not hit testable. When we end it, I want this, oops, to be collapsed. So that means we need to start this with the timer being hidden. So by default, we click on this. I want this to be collapsed. So in visibility, collapsed. back in the event graph now, I'll just give myself some space. When I started, I also want to update this timer. So to update it, we want to call that function from the focus timer. So let's do update screen time. And these values I want to come from, again, the same widget. Return set time. And there we go. So session minutes, break minutes, and number of sessions. Again, we're just not setting the seconds. And then this should go in here. Otherwise, you'll get an error that it's empty. Perfect. And at the very end, we just call the same thing. But now we have the updated values as the clock is ticking. So this goes to minutes, seconds, minutes, seconds, and number of sessions. So there we go. We are completed now. We are finished. Compile and save. And the big moment of truth. Did all that hard work pay off? Let's see. Start. Boom. We get this working. Restart. Disappears. Let's say I set it to 10. Boom. It works. So all we got to do is now actually make this count down. So let's do that. So head back inside your focus timer, and inside the focus timer countdown function, we want to go ahead and design that logic. So we want to grab the session seconds. Let's get the seconds, get the minutes, and break seconds, break minutes, and number of sessions. So the idea here is like this. If the session seconds are equal to 0, we go ahead and minus minutes, and so on. So we just want to continue this order like so. And we'll do it this way. So if session seconds are equal, so they're not 0, branch, plug that in here. And I'll just start it off like this, a little bit better. Okay. So if session seconds are not equal to 0, false, we go ahead, grab the session seconds, and we decrement it. Now, if that's true, we go ahead then and check if the minutes are equal to 0. So if they're not equal to 0, again, we just take the session minutes and we decrement. Oh, not subtract, decrement. Like so. Okay. And again, true. If that's the case, we go to, oops, Control B. No, not Control B. What is it? Left mouse B for the branch. So we go in here and check for the break seconds. Again, we'll decrement that. And if it's 0, we'll go into minutes and do the same here. So if that's the case, we'll grab the minutes and decrement it as well. And then we'll deal what's at the top in a second. Okay, so if session seconds are equal to 0, we continue, we minus the minutes, but now we got to set the session seconds back to 59. So grab your session seconds, Alt and drag, by the way, to set, Control and drag to get. So we set this to 59. Now we want to do the same for our minutes. So in here, minutes, we want to grab the session break seconds. And we want to set this to 59, like so. Next then, if the number of sessions is equal to 0, I actually want this to be 1 because we can't have 0 sessions. So 1 is minimal. And if it's equal to 1, we'll end the session. If false, we would go ahead, grab this and decrement it as we do with everything else. And once we decrement it, I want to reset the break minutes and the session minutes. So set session minutes and set break minutes. So we reset that to whatever the default values were. So in our case, that's going to be the time that comes from the session. Now we have a little problem because every time we update the horizontal time slot, we actually update this value as well. So we actually don't want to update the value in here. we'll only have the clock on the screen count down. And if we compile and save that and go back in here, then we can safely grab the sessions. So where do we have this? So let's go ahead and grab the widget session and do get value or get current time. There we go. Plug that in there and do the same with the break. So widget break, current time goes in there. Perfect. Now, if the case is true, we want to then check if everything else is 0. So let's see. I'll just grab everything here. So seconds and number of sessions. So I want to see if everything is equal to 0. Like so. Okay, so we have this here then, and I want to do a AND boolean to make sure everything is empty. And if that's the case, we have a branch here. So everything is empty. Go ahead and decrement the last session and end the timer. So we want to call end focus timer. And that's the logic complete. So let's compile and save, and let's test it. Hit play. There we go. Let's see start. 5:49 or 59, sorry. There we go. And we can speed this time up. So to test this a little more efficiently, we can go to our player character. And inside we can right click, create a keyboard one event. And in here, I want to do set global time dilation. Let's say we can do something crazy like 50. 1, by the way, is default. So if I press 1, let's see. I want to press and hold. So if I release, I set it back to 1. Compile and save. Play. And if I press 1, we should go crazy. Yeah, we go crazy. So in here, start that. Hold 1. There we go. Time going down. So it's working. And when it gets down to 0, we should have the break going on as well. Let's see. There we go. Break happens. And then when we go down to 0 again, the sessions should be left 0 and timer disappears. Moment of truth. Oh, the timer doesn't actually disappear. So let's see why that is the case. So I found the issue. I'm actually decrementing after doing a check. So this will come out to be false. So let's plug this in here. Before we do any of that, let me just clean this up a little bit. Oh, I don't want to be here. There we go. And this should now work. So let me compile and save and test it. So moment of truth, let's see, 0 and done. Perfect. So with all that, we are almost done. We are only missing a notification for when we start the break and again start the task. So let's go and create one. Let's go ahead, create a widget, call it WB_notify. And in here, I want to do a canvas panel. So we'll add that to the screen and then a simple border with some text. Now you could go ahead and animate this, but since this isn't really relevant to the video, we won't. And for the size, I'll do 400 and 140 and just give it like a nice grayish color and just pop a text in there. So, and give this a name because we will edit it. So txt notify name, center that, and there we go. Compile and save. Now in here, we want to create a custom event called play notify. And what we'll do is, oops, let me get rid of those. Construct I actually want. So I'll delete the other one. So on play, I I want to create a variable of type text. Let's call it notify. I want to set this from the play. I want to grab my text and do set text to whatever that happens to be. And afterwards, I want to do a, let's see, set timer by event. Not looping, just after some time. So let's say 1 second. I want to end this timer. So destroy widget. This will remove it from the parent, essentially destroying it. Okay, and we can just comment this sets the notify message and counts down counts. All right, and let's just add this to our play event construct here. So drag that in. Oh, actually, we'll just call it from the widget itself. File and save. So back inside the focus timer here, we want to go ahead and at the very bottom, we'll just create a custom event called set time notify. And we want to create widget, which will be our, let's see, notify widget. We want to add to viewport and the play animation, play notify. And we'll just set it from here. Perfect. And next, we want to go ahead and call this in our countdown timer. So focus timer countdown. And on session minutes false, before we do any of this, I want to grab a branch, both for session minutes false and break minute false. So we'll do another one here. This we can call after. So how we'll do this is, the condition is if we grab the session, widget session, and see if the current time is equal the session minutes. If that's the case, so the first time we're running, we'll go ahead and do this. Otherwise we won't. So false, we go in here, and on true, we want to do the notify. Set time notify, and let's say action, and then we'll just go and decrement as we do. So the same thing here, we want to grab that on true, and then go in here. Otherwise, we'll just continue like so, and we'll say break. And the condition is going to be if the break widget time is equal to the break minutes. And there we go. So let's test this out now. Compile, save. Let's play. We get our action, perfect. Let's speed this up. And we should get our break as well. And we do, perfect. Now, one last thing, you will get a notification at the end, but let's go ahead and give it a name. So in the focus timer, there we go. We want to make sure that at the end of the timer, so right here, we also add that. So notify, set time notify, and we'll just say finished. And there we are. Compile and save. So this is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you'd like to see next. And as always, happy developing.